Masechet Shevuot Daf Yod Tet. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Hasheres v'ne'ala mimenu v'chule mai benayhu. We begin with a citation from the Mishnah, and we should go back to the Mishnah to remind ourselves of the opinions of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. According to Tanakama and according to Rabbi Ishmael that comes after them, there are multiple ways to be liable to bring a korban olev yored. Either if someone knew that he was tameh and then forgot and entered into the mikdash or ate sacrificial food and then remembered again, they have to bring korban olev yored. Or if someone knew that they were in the mikdash area, they knew where the mikdash area was, or they knew this was sacrificial food, and then knowing the whole time that they are tameh, they forgot that this area is the temple courtyard, or they forgot that this meat is sacrificial meat, and they ate it or entered there, and then realized they also have to bring korban olev yored. That is Tanakama. That is also to be Ishmael. However, Rabbi Eliezer Omer Hasheres v'ne'ala mimenu al ha'elem sheres chayav ve'no chayav al ha'elem mikdash. Rabbi Eliezer notices that in the Pesukim regarding a person entering into the Mikdash while Tameh or eating food while Tameh, the Pasuk mentions, and here's the English, or if a person touches anything impure, whether it is a carcass of a non-kosher undomesticated animal, or the carcass of a non-kosher domesticated animal, a behema or chaya, or of a non-kosher creeping animal, or a sheretz. So if a person touches any of these things, a nebela, or a sheretz, and then he doesn't realize. So why does the pasuk have to say all of these examples? Why not just say someone who's tameh? So it says sheretz, and then it says v'ne'ela mimenu. It means, what is he forgetting? He's forgetting that he touched a sheretz, or he's forgetting that he touched a nebela. He has to forget the fact that he is tameh. That's when he has to bring a korban olev yored. But it's not talking about where he was unaware that he was in the temple courtyard. He forgot that this area was a temple courtyard, or he forgot that this food is sacrificial meat. If he forgot that, he does not bring a korban olev yored. That's Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Akiva seems to say the same law. He just learns it slightly differently from the same pasuk. Instead of quoting the sheretz part, he says v'ne'ela mimenu v'hu tameh. He quotes the continuation after. He forgot that he is tameh. So Rabbi Akiva says, see, what does he forget? He forgot his own status that he is tameh. That's when he has to bring a korban olev yored. He knew he was tameh, then he forgot, and then he remembered again. And he remembered that while he was tameh, he ate this sacrificial food. That's what it's talking about, and it's not, the pasuk is not talking about a case where he forgot that he was in the courtyard of the temple, or he forgot that this was sacrificial food. That's a different case. It doesn't bring a korban olev yored for that. So now the Gemara asks, quoting this section of the Mishnah, "My benayhu." What is the difference between the opinions of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva? They learned it from just different words in the same pasuk, but they seem to be saying the same law. Amar Chizkiya, sheres unvela ika benayhu. Rabbi Eliezer savar, bainan ad deyada, ibe sheres itme, ibe nebela itme. Rabbi Akiva savar, la bainan ad deyada, dechavan deyada ad itma ba'olam, la sarich ibe sheres itme, ibe nebela itme. Chizkiya says there is in fact a practical difference between them. And that is, does someone have to know precisely how they became tameh? Person says, oh, I know I was tameh. So do you have to know whether you became tameh by touching a sheretz or whether you became tameh by touching a nevela? According to the Rabbi Eliezer, yes, he needs to know. He can't just say, oh, I knew I was tameh in general somehow, and then I forgot and I remembered again. No, he has to know exactly how he became tameh. Did you touch a sheretz? Did you touch a nevela? If you don't know, you know you touched something that made you tameh, but you don't know precisely what it was, then you don't bring a korban olev yored. That's Rabbi Eliezer, because the pasuk says, did you touch a nebela? Did you touch a sheretz? It lists the different examples. Whereas according to Rabbi Akiva, you don't have to know precisely how you became tameh. If you know that you touched this or that, either one made you tameh, one or the other made you tameh, you touched one of them. I don't know which one I touched, but I definitely am tameh. So you're definitely tameh. And it doesn't matter whether you know which one you touched, if you touched a sheretz or you touched a nevela. That's the difference difference between them, and that's the difference between their language. Here Rabbi Akiva says, Ne'elam menhu tameh. He just knows, he knew he was tameh somehow, and then he forgot he was tameh. It doesn't matter how he became tameh. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer learns it from the fact that it says, sheretz, nebela, so it's making distinctions between them. Therefore, it does matter, and you have to know exactly how you became tameh. That is Chizkiya's explanation of this machloket. V'chen amar Ula. Ula agrees with Chizkiya's interpretation of this machloket between the two Tanaim, because he says sheretz unvela ikabanayu, same thing. Whether you know the difference between if you became tameh by sheretz or nevela, that is what their argument is about. And how do we know that Ula said this? The Ula damer de Rabbi Eliezer ad Rabbi Eliezer umishaneh, because Ula one time he brought two statements by Rabbi Eliezer that seemed to contradict, and he resolved the contradiction. Mi amar Rabbi Eliezer ba'inan adi ada ibe sheretz itmeh ibe nevela itmeh. Rabbi Eliezer, when reading our Mishnah, said, is that true that, according to Rabbi Eliezer, you need to know whether you became tameh by sheretz or you became tameh by nebela? So you see just from this line that he's reading our Mishnah the same as the way Chizkiah is reading our Mishnah. So that's already the proof. But we'll continue and quote the entire argument of Ula. Urminhi, amar Rabbi Eliezer, ma nafshach, cheleb achal achayab, notar achal hayab, Shabbat chilel hayab, Yom Kippur Kippurim chilel hayab, Ishto nida ba'al hayab, Achoto ba'al hayab. Rabbi Ula is quoting a different statement of Rabbi Eliezer, a different braita, who says, this is not regarding Korban Olev Yored. This is talking about just a regular Korban Hatat. He says, if someone knows that they made a sin that would require a Korban Hatat, it doesn't matter if they know precisely which sin they made. What's the difference? Let's say he ate something, and he knows it was something that was prohibited, and he doesn't know. Maybe he ate chaleb, or maybe he ate notar. Both of them are chayab, a korban hatat, when eaten by mistake. Now, he knows he ate one of them, he doesn't know which one, so he has to bring korban hatat, because what's the difference? Let's say he violated Shabbat by mistake, and he violated a day by mistake, and he doesn't know whether it was Shabbat that he violated or Yom Kippur. He remembers, one time I cooked on a holiday, and I didn't know that it was prohibited, and then he learns halakha is prohibited, but he can't remember, was that a Shabbat when I cooked, or was it Yom Kippur that I cooked? I don't remember. Well, either way, he's going to bring Korban Chatat, so he brings it. Or he slept with someone, and he doesn't know, someone prohibited, but he doesn't know, was it his own wife, and she was Nida, or was it his sister? He doesn't know. But either way, he has to bring a Korban Chatat. It was something done by mistake. So he is liable. What do we see here? According to the Rabbi Eliezer, it doesn't matter if you don't have to know precisely what caused you to have to bring a korban hatat. As long as you know for sure you have to bring korban hatat, the precise reason doesn't matter. That contradicts what he said over here regarding a korban olev yored, that you have to know precisely how you became tameh in order to be liable to bring a korban. Okay, now that's Rabbi Eliezer in that baraita. Within that baraita, there's another opinion. Amar lo Rabbi Yoshua, harehu omer o hoda elav hatato asher hata ba, ad shivada lecha b'meh hata. Rabbi Yoshua told Rabbi Eliezer, hold on, the pasuk regarding a korban hatat says, or if his sin, in which he sinned, became known to him. What does that mean? That it's only if it's known to him exactly how he sinned. He has to not only remember, I made some kind of sin, he has to know precisely what the sin is. You can't just bring a korban hatat for some generality that, I definitely did some kind of sin, but I don't remember what it was. Then you don't bring a korban hatat, only if you know precisely, I know I ate cheleb, or I know I ate notar. Not just, I know I ate something prohibited, so you have to know precisely what it is. Rabbi Yoshua in this baraita seems to go along with Rabbi Eliezer in our Mishnah. They fit together. You have to know precisely what caused you to have to bring the korban. But Rabbi Eliezer in the Mishnah and Rabbi Eliezer in this baraita are contradictory. Umeshaneh, Ula answered the question himself. Hatam asher hata vehevi amarachamana chet kol shehu. It's different. The pisukim are different. When it comes to a regular korban hatat, it says if someone sins and they bring a korban. So you see that the Torah says, as long as one sinned. It doesn't matter what sin he did. It doesn't matter if he knows what sin he did. If he knows for sure that he made a sin that requires korban hatat, he doesn't have to remember precisely what the sin is. Because it says, whoever sinned, he brings it. Hacha mikede keti bechol davar tameh o beniblat sheres tameh lamali shema'amina ba'ainan adi ada I besheres itmeh I benebela itmeh. But here, in the context of a korban ole veyored, it says if he touched anything that is impure, you could have just said that, all right? Which it says at the beginning of the pasuk. He touches anything. We could have stopped there and said he has to, and then he goes to the mikdash. He has to bring korban ole veyored. Why does it say or he touched a nebela, or if he touched a sheretz? Why do you have to add all that? Shema'amina ba'ainan adi ada I besheretz itmeh I benebela itmeh. So the pasuk teaches us that when it comes to korban ole veyored, the law is different from a korban hatat, the regular katat kibu'ah. Regarding ole veyored, you have to know precisely what caused you to be tameh, and therefore caused you to bring this korban. Rabbi Akiba learns the same law, but he learns it from the continuation of the pasuk, not from the fact that it says nebela and sheretz. So according to Rabbi Akiba, why does the pasuk enumerate if someone became tameh by nebela, if he became tameh by sheretz? And their answer is lechederbi ketibna mesheres kedetana deberbi shmel kol parasha shenemra v'nishnet lo nishnet ela bishbil davar shenitchadesh ba. Rabbi Akiba says, in fact, it's not necessary for the Torah to say if he became tameh by nevela or became tameh by sheretz. In fact, it is superfluous. This is all surprising for Rabbi Akiba to say, because usually Rabbi Akiba is the one that learns from every extra word, every extra letter. But here we are saying that according to Rabbi Akiba, we just mentioned this because the pasuk wanted to mention behema and haya separately because of what Rabbi Yehuda Nasi taught. He taught something back on Daf 7a. We can look back there to remind ourselves of what Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said. Detanya, Rabbi Omer ekrani chaya behema lama ne'emra. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said about this pasuk that you could have just said the word chaya. The word chaya has a general meaning and a specific meaning. The general meaning is talking about all living animals, including domesticated and not domesticated. The more specific meaning, when it's compared to a behema, is a behema is domesticated, and in that sense, chaya would be an undomesticated animal. So since if someone touched a nebela of any animal, domesticated or undomesticated, the pasuk could have just said haya as the catch-all general phrase. Why did the pasuk have to specify behema? Why not just say haya? And Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's answer is to make a gezerah shava. It says here behema teme'ah, and it says later on behema teme'ah, and in that context it's talking about sacrificial meat. So to here it's talking about sacrificial meat. And we learn from here that when does someone have to bring a korban ole veyored? When they are tameh, but they forgot their tameh, and they eat sacrificial meat. That's when they have to bring korban. So he uses the behema for that. That's why the Torah had to go out of its way to separately discuss behema and haya. Now, why does it mention sheretz? Since it's already making a list, since it's already differentiating between different sources of tum'ah, either from a nebelav chaya or a nebelav behema, so then the Torah goes and continues and mentions also sheretz. This follows the methodology of Rabbi Yishmael. This is unusual that Rabbi Akiba would be following the methodology of Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael is the one that says, Dibra Torah kilshon bnei adam. Sometimes the Torah has extra words just because that's human natural language. The Torah speaks in human natural language. Rabbi Akiba is usually the one that disagrees with it. But here we're saying that Rabbi Akiba is following this particular methodology, where Rabbi Yishmael said a very important rule, that anytime you have a parasha, a section of laws that is said once and then repeated, it's repeated only for one new thing that will be mentioned in it, or whatever, a couple of new things. The point is that just because you have a repetition, you have a law, you have one paragraph that has laws A, B, and C about a particular topic, and then the Torah wants to add one more law, D. It's not going to just say D, it's going to say A, B, C, and then also also say D. Why did it repeat ABC? No reason. Don't learn anything new from the repetition. It just repeats ABC to give you the full context, so then it can add D. And therefore, that's what's happening here also. The Torah wanted to tell you this chidush regarding behema, and that's as Rabbi Yehuda Nasi taught. So the Torah is not going to just say chaya, it wants to add also behema. Why'd you mention sheretz? It's not necessary. We know the laws of Tum'ah already. We know that Sheretz causes Tum'ah, but it's repeated here just so that it can fill out all of the laws and then add Behemah, but don't learn anything new from Sheretz. So that's what Rabbi Akiva could respond to Rabbi Eliezer, that we're in fact not learning anything new from this. Okay, so that's Rabbi Akiva's methodology, which is really interesting that we are saying that he's following Rabbi Ishmael. Now, Rabbi Eliezer, Hai ba my abid le. Now, a question back to Rabbi Eliezer in this Baraita quoted by Ula, where Rabbi Yoshua says, since it says in the pasuk regarding a regular hatat kebu'ah, if it becomes known to him his sin, that he sinned in it. From the word ba, asher chata ba, we learn that he has to know specifically what sin he made. But Rabbi Eliezer disagrees when it comes to korban hatat kebu'ah. He says you don't have to know particularly what sin you made, as long as you know you did some sin that requires a korban hatat, and you have to bring it. So what is Rabbi Eliezer going to do with the word ba? And the answer is ba is coming to exclude perat lamit asek, to exclude someone who does something totally unaware. For example, if someone on Shabbat, he sees something on the floor and he picks it up, thinking he's just picking something up. It's in his courtyard. He wants to pick up some vegetable that's on the floor. So he thinks he's just picking up a vegetable, which is totally allowed. Turns out it was connected to the ground and he plucks it out of the ground. He does not have to bring a korban at all because he didn't even think he was doing any action of plucking. It's not like a person who says, oh, I didn't know that plucking was permitted. I know I was plucking something out of the ground. I didn't know that plucking was not allowed on Shabbat. Or I didn't realize it was Shabbat today. That person has to bring korban because he knows he was doing an act of plucking. He just didn't know it was prohibited. That person brings a korban. But if a person doesn't even know he's plucking, he didn't realize that this thing is connected to the ground, then he is not liable at all. So ba means in it as a limiting word and comes to limit mitasek. Rabbi Yochanan Amar. Now, we just saw two people that gave an answer to what's the difference between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer. That was Chizkiah and Ula. They both said that there is a substantive, practical difference between them, whether a person has to know that what they did wrong or how they become tameh specifically or not. However, we have another opinion. Rabbi Yochanan Amar. Mashmaut orshin ika benayhu. Rabbi Yochanan says there is no practical difference between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. They're only arguing about how you interpret the Pisukim. Which Pasuk do you interpret? Is it the words beforehand or the words after? How do you derive it? What do the words mean? But there is in fact no practical difference. V'chen amar Rav Sheshet, mashmut orshin ika benayhu. Rav Sheshet also said that there's no practical difference between them. It's just about how to interpret the Pisukim. The Rav Sheshet machalif to Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Akiva, the Rabbi Akiva, the Rabbi Eliezer. And in fact, Rav Sheshet would switch around the opinions of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva because there's no difference between them. So the point is, one interprets the Pasukim this Pasuk that way, and one learns it from a different part of the Pasuk. It's actually learning it from the same Pasuk, but it's the same practical difference. So he wasn't even careful to name one or the other. Be'amine Rava me Rav Nachman. Question that Rava asks Rav Nachman, He'alem ze v'ze bi'ado mahu. He asks, according to Rabbi Eliezer and according to Rabbi Akiva, since they say one only brings a korban olev yored if he forgot he was tameh, but he does not bring a korban olev yored if he forgot that this was the area of the mikdash. What if someone forgot both of them? He forgot that he was tameh, and he didn't realize that this is an area that he's walking in is the temple courtyard. What do we say? Amar le, Rav Nachman answered, Hareh he'alem tumah bi'ado v'chayav. Well, he forgot he's tameh, and therefore he's liable, because that's that you agree that if he forgets his tameh, he has to bring korban, and he forgot he's tameh. But we ask about that. Adrabah, Hareh he'alem mikdash bi'ado patur. Well, you can argue the opposite. He doesn't know that he's in the Bet HaMikdash. So you said that if he forgot that this is the Bet HaMikdash area, then he is not liable. So maybe he should not be liable. So you didn't answer the question. Amar Rav Asher, Hazenan, im tum'ah kaparish hareh ha'alem tum'ah biyado v'chayav. Im mikdash kaparish hareh ha'alem mikdash biyado upatur. Rav Asher says, I have an answer for you. Let's see. What caused him to leave? Is it that someone said, hey, you're tameh? And he says, oh, I'm tameh. And then he left the temple courtyard. If that's the case, then we see that the main thing that was keeping him there was he forgot that he was tameh. Once you told him he's tameh, then he left. But if you tell him, hey, mister, you're in the Mikdash area. He says, oh, in the Mikdash area, and he leaves. In that case, that shows that the primary thing that he was causing him to be there was that he forgot that he was in the Mikdash, and then he leaves once he finds that out, so then he is not liable. Amar le Ravina Rav Asher, kilum parish Mikdash ela mishum tumah, kilum parish mituma ela mishum Mikdash ela lashena. However, Ravina argues against Rav Asher. Says that doesn't make sense. When he leaves the Mikdash, is he not leaving because of tum'ah? Is he not leaving also because he's in the Mikdash? In other words, one or the other wouldn't make a difference. If you tell someone he's walking around and he says, hey, you're tameh, what are you doing here? Well, if he doesn't know he's in the Mikdash, then he's going to be, so what, I'm tameh, I'm just walking in the street. What's the difference? He has to also know that he is in the Mikdash. And the same thing the other way. If you tell someone, hey, you're in the Mikdash courtyard, he says, okay, so what? If he doesn't realize he's tameh, so then he's not going to leave because of that. So it doesn't matter which one you happen to tell him. He has to, in fact, realize both aspects in order to say, oh, I am tameh and I'm in the Mikdash, and therefore I have to leave. Therefore, it doesn't really matter what someone says. It could be someone says, hey, you're tameh. And he says, okay, so I'm tameh. Oh, I'm in the Mikdash. So they're going to come to that realization too. One realization without the other is not going to make a difference, and therefore Ravina argues against Rav Asher's distinction. Tino Rabbanan, we next have a baraita that introduces some very interesting cases that are related to what we just talked about, that if someone knows they are tameh, but they're not quite sure how they became tameh. So here's some interesting cases in that vein. Shene shevilin, echad tameh ve'echad tahor, ve'halach barishon ve'lo nichnas, b'sheni ve'nichnas hayab. Let's imagine that there are two pathways. One of them is tameh, meaning there are corpses along the way. If one walks there, one will become tameh tumat met. And the other one, that path is tahor. And there's safek. We don't know which one is which. And the person walked in one of them, and he did not enter into the temple area. And then he walked down the other path, and then he did enter into the temple courtyard. So he is definitely tameh, because one of these two paths is definitely tameh. We're just not sure which one it is. But he walked down both of them. So he's surely tameh, and he enters into the temple courtyard. Therefore, he has to bring a korban olev yored. We're talking about a case where he knew that he went down both, so he knew he was tameh, but then he forgot, and he went into the temple courtyard, and then he realized after, oh, I went down both of those paths, I am surely tameh. Now, even though he doesn't know which path is tameh, and when did he get tameh, from the first one or from the second one, so he doesn't know precisely, but he's 100% tameh, so he brings a korban. Second case, halach barishon v'nichnas, hiza v'shana v'tabal, v'achad kach halach b'sheni v'nichnas hayab. If, however, he went down one path, and he went to the Bet HaMikdash at that point, and then he got sprinkled para aduma waters on the third day, and then again on the seventh day, and he went to the mikveh. So now, even if he was tameh, now he's tahor. After that, he walks down the second path, and he goes to the Bet HaMikdash again. He also is liable according to Tanakama. Why? because he definitely entered into the Bet HaMikdash while tameh. Either it was from the first time when he went down the first path and he entered the Bet HaMikdash. So if that path was tameh, he sinned. Or maybe the first time that was tahor. He went to did paraduma. He didn't have to for nothing. And then the second time he went down the other path, and that was tameh. And then he entered. So one way or another, he definitely entered. Again, we're talking about where he realized at some point that he had gone down a path that could be tameh. So he realized a safek, actually, in this case. He realized, and then he forgot about it, and he went to the Mikdash. Or the second time, he realized he went down a path that could be tameh, forgot about it, went to the Bet HaMikdash. So that is where he knew, at least misafek, then forgot and entered. Well, one time, either the first time or the second time, one or the other, one of them, he was tameh, and therefore he has to bring a korban, according to Tanakama. Rabbi Shimon poter. However, Rabbi Shimon says he does not have to in this case, because each time he is not sure that he is impure. The first time he went in, well, maybe he was tameh. He's not going to bring a korban olev yored just out of a safek that he might have been tameh. So we treat, since he went in twice and he was purified in between, so we treat each one separately. If in the first case, at that point, let's say he just went in down one path and then he went to the Mikdash, would he bring a korban olev yored out of a safek? He would not. You only bring a korban olev yored if you know for sure that you sinned. He doesn't. So for that first one, he doesn't. And for the second one, by itself, he wouldn't. So we don't combine the two together. These are two separate actions. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda poter bechulan mishum Rabbi Shimon. And we have yet another opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, and in the name of Rabbi Shimon, so we have this Rabbi Shimon by himself, but another opinion of Rabbi Shimon, who says patur not only in the second case, but also in the first case, where he went down one and went down the second, did not purify himself in between, did not go to the Bet HaMikdash in between, went to the Bet HaMikdash afterwards. He is patur from a korban because, well, he doesn't know which one caused the tumah. And if you don't know which one caused the tumah, apparently, according to this other version of Rabbi Shimon, so you don't bring a korban. So we ask about that opinion. Bechulan vafilu bekamaita. Really? Regarding even the first case, you don't bring a korban? Why not? Miman nafshach tamehu. Either way, he's tameh. He went down path A. He went down path B. He's definitely tameh. And now he went to the Mikdash. So what's the difference which path? Think of it like one long path, and there's definitely tumah somewhere along the way. So what's the difference? Amar Rava, hacha b'maiskinan kegon shalach barishon ubesha shalach b'sheni shachach shalach barishon tavyale miksat yedi'ah. Rava explains, no, you can't think of it as one long path, and for sure there's tumah somewhere along the path. Rather, because we're talking about a specific case where he walked down path A, and then he forgot that he walked down path A, and he walked down path B. So at that point, he has only one safek. And according to what he knows at that point, he forgot about path A. I went down path B. Well, that's safek. 50-50, I'm tameh. So that's not full awareness. If you only know 50-50, I might be tameh. Let's take just a regular case where he only went down one path at all only. He only went down path B. He never went down path A. And so he knows, I might be tameh, safek tameh. He forgets that he's safek tameh. And he goes into the Mikdash. And then he remembers, I went down one path. I'm safek tameh. He does not bring a korban. You don't bring a korban hatat if you're not sure that you sinned. For that, he brings a korban talui, but that's for other types of sins, not for this type of tum'ah of going into the Mikdash. So you only bring a korban oleh v'yored for going into the Mikdash when you knew you were tameh. Then you forgot, and then you remembered that you were tameh for sure. And so, let's say just went down one path, he would not bring a korban because it's safek. So this is the same thing. He went down path A, but he forgot about that completely. Okay, then he goes down path B. So he knows he's safek tameh. That's his knowledge was only safek tameh. He never knew that he was for sure tameh. And then he enters into the Mikdash, forgetting everything. He forgot that he was a tameh at all, even safek. And afterwards he remembers that I went down path A and B. Oh, afterwards he remembers that he's for sure tameh. All right, that's fine after, but you only bring a korban olev yored, remember, if you had awareness, forgetfulness, awareness. And his original awareness was not a definite awareness, it was only an awareness of a safek. And that's why he does not bring a korban ole ve'yored, according to this for Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda's version of Rabbi Shimon. Ubeha kami palge Tana kama sabad amrinan miksat yedya kechol yedya ve'Rabbi Shimon sabad lo amrinan miksat yedya kechol yedya. Okay, if that's the case, well then we have to explain Tana kama. Tana kama says that partial knowledge is like full knowledge. In this case, this person forgot completely that he went down path A. He only remembered in the first place that he went down path B. So the yedi'ah that's before the he'elam was only partial. In fact, he did go down both, so he is in fact definitely tameh. But his knowledge is only about the second one, and so he's not sure that he is tameh. So he has partial knowledge, not full knowledge. According to Tanakama, partial knowledge is sufficient to be called knowledge at the beginning, and then he forgot everything totally, and then at the end he remembers, I in fact went down both paths, I am definitely tameh. So he's going to bring a korban olev yored because he knows he's definitely tameh, he definitely sinned. Okay, so for sure he brings a korban because he definitely sinned. Yeah, but you only bring a korban olev yored if you had awareness at the beginning. You didn't have full awareness. Partial awareness, and you are aware of something, that's sufficient. Whereas, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, in the name of Rabbi Shimon, he says that partial awareness is not called awareness. You're aware of part of what you did, but that's not called awareness because you only knew one half of the equation, and you didn't realize you forgot it at the beginning before you went in. You forgot completely about. You never realized about going down path A, and so partial awareness is not called awareness. And therefore, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda says that one is patur from korban olev yored, even in that case. Halach barishon v'nichnas v'hiza v'shana v'tabal chazar v'halach b'shani v'nichnas chayab v'Rabbi Shimon poter v'amay chayab safek yedi'ahu. Now we go and analyze further the second case of the baraita, where he went down the first path. And then he went to the Bet HaMikdash, purified himself with paraduma, then went down the second path and again entered into the Bet HaMikdash. Tanakama says, Rabbi Shimon says, patur. We ask, why is he liable? After all, there's only a safek yedi'ah. Safek yedi'ah is actually even less than the miksat yedi'ah. Miksat yedi'ah he did in fact go down both paths, but he's not sure, but he only remembered half of it. So he is definitely tameh, but he doesn't know that. That's different from safek yedi'ah, where he has knowledge that he went down a path that is 50-50 tameh. So this is, he had a safek yedi'ah. He had it twice. But these are separate safek yedi'ahs. The first time he went down a path, he realized, I went down a path that is 50-50 tameh. And then he forgot at that, and he went into the Mikdash. Well, that's safek yedi'ah. And then he purified himself. Now the second time, the same thing happens. Again, it's only safek yedi'ah, it's only awareness of uncertain impurity. So why should he be liable if the awareness was only of uncertain impurity? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, kan asu safek yedi'ah ki yedi'ah. Rabbi Yochanan says, in this case, we say, the rabbis say, or the Torah says, we'll see his source in a few minutes, that partial knowledge is like knowledge. That's sufficient, even though you knew you went down a path that's only 50-50 tameh, so you don't even realize that you are tameh. Nevertheless, then you go into the Mikdash, and you did this once, and then you went on the other path and did it again. So by the end, we look at both together, and we say either the first time or the second time, you definitely sin. So there is a definite sin somewhere here, either the first time or the second time. And the first time and the second time, you had sufficient yedi'ah. Although it was only safek yedi'ah, only knowledge of a possibility of impurity, that's considered enough to be yedi'ah. And now, by the end, you realize that you did it on the first path, you did it in the second path, you definitely were tameh at one point in the mikdash, so you bring a korban olev yored. That's Rabbi Yochanan. V'Resh Lakish amar hamaneh, Rabbi Yishmael hi damar la ba'ainan yedi'ah batechila. Resh Lakish says, no, safek yedi'ah is not yedi'ah. Knowledge of uncertain impurity, that's not called knowledge. And therefore, you never had awareness at the beginning. However, this baraita is the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. And Rabbi Yishmael says, you don't need knowledge at the beginning. The Mishnah assumed that you need yedi'ah, he'elem yedi'ah. But not everybody agrees with that. Rabbi Yishmael says, even if you had no awareness at the beginning, no awareness when you were in the mikdash, and only realized after, still, you have to bring a korban olev yored. So, yes, it was only safek yedi'ah. Safek yedi'ah is not yedi'ah, but you don't need yedi'ah batechila. V'eramed Rabbi Yochanan ad Rabbi Yochanan. V'eramed Resh Lakish ad Resh Lakish. Now we're going to be in contradiction between this statement of Rabbi Yochanan and something else he says, and this statement of Rabbi Resh Lakish and something else that he says. The Tanya, achal safek chaylev v'noda. Safek chaylev v'noda. Rabbi Omer, keshem shemebi chatat al kol echad ve'echad, kach mebi asham talui al kol echad ve'echad. Someone ate a piece of meat that might be cheleb or might not be cheleb. Let's say he has two pieces of meat here, two pieces of fat, one is kosher, one is cheleb, and he ate it. And then realized that he ate one of them, but doesn't know which one was kosher and which one was not kosher. So he has some awareness. Now, if you would stop there, that he realizes he sinned, he realized that he may have sinned. At this point, he would bring a korban talui, an asham talui, which means an asham that will suspend the possibility of punishment, because he doesn't know if he ever finds out for sure that he ate the tameh one, then he will bring a regular korban chatat kebu'ah. Now, this happens twice. He eats something first time that might be cheleb or not, and realizes it. And then that's one period of awareness. And then he happens again. He eats another two pieces. That one of them is cheleb, one of them is kosher. He eats one of them, and he realizes. At the time that he ate, he thought both were kosher. He realized after that, one was kosher, one was not kosher. I don't know which one I ate. So the question is, does he have to bring two korban taluis or only one? Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says, just like he brings two korban chatats. Let's say he realizes afterwards, his wife comes home and says, at 10 a.m. you ate one of these two, you ate the non-kosher one. At 1 o'clock, you ate from this other refrigerator one of those two, that you also picked the wrong one, and that was cheleb also. So if he realizes afterwards that he ate both of them were cheleb, he has to bring two korban chatats. And just like he would have to bring two korban chatats after he realizes that for sure he sinned, so too before his wife comes home, before he knows which one is which, he didn't think that there was information to find out. He has to bring an asham talui on each one, because the first time he thought they were both kosher. He ate one, and he doesn't know if it was the kosher one or not. He has to bring an asham talui for that. And then it happened again. He brings asham talui for the second one. You can't use one asham talui for both, but rather, just like you would bring two korban chatats once you know, so two korban asham taluis. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Amru Mishum Rabbi Shimon. So two sages in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai say, no, maybe ela asham talui echad. No, you only have to bring one asham talui. Although Rabbi Shimon would agree that once, if and when you find out which one was which, and you know that for sure you sinned and ate two pieces of cheleb, you would have to bring a korban chatat, two korban chatats. Everyone agrees with that. But Rabbi Shimon says, korban talui, asham talui is different. Because shene'emad al shigigato asher shagag haTorah dibita shigagot harbeh ve'asham talui echad. for the unwitting transgression that he made. You see, it's in singular. Shigato, shagag. It's only singular. The Torah includes many instances of unwitting transgression in one korban talui. You can bring, if you knew I did a lot of acts, and each one of them, I'm not sure if I sinned or not. You can include all of them and just bring one asham talui. You just one asham talui for both of these acts. So that's the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Shimon. What does all this have to do with Resh Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan? As follows. Each of them has an explanation for the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. V'amar Resh Lakish, kan shana Rabbi yediot sefekot mithalekot lechataot. According to Resh Lakish, Rabbi, what's his chidush in teaching here when he says that you have to bring, just like you bring multiple korban chatats, so too you'd bring multiple asham taluis. What's the principle behind this? He's teaching us the principle that knowledge of uncertain awareness is separates acts into multiple chatat offerings. That the fact that you knew, what did you know in between? You didn't know that for sure you sinned. Now here's the law regarding korban chatat. If I ate 2 or even 100 pieces of cheleb within one period of unawareness, then I only bring one korban chatat for all the sins. I only bring an extra korban chatat, multiple korban chatats, if I had realization in between. So here, do you call this safek knowledge realization? And the answer, according to the B, obviously is yes, because he says that once you do find out, you'd bring 2 korban chatats, even though in between you only had a partial awareness. You only had an awareness that maybe I sinned. So we see from here that according to the Yehuda Nasi, safek, yediot safek, is considered a knowledge for this law of bringing multiple korban chatats. So that's what Resh Lakish says regarding korban chatat. And this seems to contradict what he says here. Because here he says, disagreeing with Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan said, Safek yedi'ah is yedi'ah. Resh Lakish says, it is not yedi'ah for the law of korban olev yored, where you need yedi'ah first, and then he'elem, and then another full yedi'ah. And Resh Lakish says here, no, it's not, Safek yedi'ah is not yedi'ah. We're following Rabbi Shmuel, who says you don't need yedi'ah. So there's a contradiction. First, Resh Lakish says that Safek Yedi'ah is not Yedi'ah, and here, in his explanation of Rabbi, he says it is Yedi'ah. And we have a contradiction. But Rabbi Yochanan also has a contradiction. He says, Amar, regarding Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, in this baraita, Keshem she'yedi'ot vadai be'alma mitchalekot lechata'ot, kach yedi'ot Safek mitchalekot la'ashamot. That Rabbi Yochanan is saying, according to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, just like a full knowledge, a knowledge that I definitely sinned, in general, separate between one korban chatat and another, meaning if I ate cheleb and I know for sure that I ate cheleb, I realized it. I ate cheleb not knowing, and then I realized I ate cheleb for sure. Then I eat cheleb again in a second period of unawareness, and then realize, so only a vadai will separate between one act and another to require a korban hatat kibu'ah. And so Rabbi Yochanan is explaining Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's logic. Just like when it comes to a korban chatat that you only bring if you realize you definitely sinned, there the yedi'ah between one act and another has to be yedi'ah, full yedi'ah that I know that I sinned. So too, yedi'ot safek mitchalekot la'ashamot. When it comes to an asham talui, which is for the possibility of a sin, I only know that maybe I sinned. So the yedi'ah between one act and another there only needs to be a safek yedi'ah. What you see here is that according to Rabbi Yochanan's explanation of Rabbi, we only count a safek yedi'ah for an asham talui, because the asham talui is only for a safek act anyway. So safek yedi'ah between one act and the other is enough to require two asham taluis. But it sounds like from here that according to Rabbi Yochanan, in other cases, like in our case of korban ole veyored, a safek yedi'ah would not be yedi'ah. But Rabbi Yochanan here says safek yedi'ah is yedi'ah. So therefore, we have a contradiction between two statements of Rabbi Yochanan as well. We're going to answer them. Bishlam ad Rabbi Yochanan la kashya. Kan asu velo bechol Torah kola asu. We can explain Rabbi Yochanan. When he says here, in the case of someone tameh entering into the Bet HaMikdash, and he requires a korban, ole v'yored, here Rabbi Yochanan says precisely, here the Torah says that we consider safek yedi'ah as full yedi'ah. But only here, not in other cases, not in the case of korban chatat kebu'ah. There we would not say such a thing. Because here, when it comes to korban olev yored, and the Torah says, he was tameh and he entered and v'ne'elam and he forgot and he entered into the mikdash. It doesn't say that explicitly that he knew at the beginning. It just says he forgot. Now we derive that since it says he forgot, it must mean that he had knowledge. But we're just inferring that he had knowledge from beforehand. Since we're only inferring that he has to have knowledge beforehand, even a half knowledge, even a knowledge of safek, of maybe he's tameh, that is sufficient to make him called Yedi'ah, He'elem Yedi'ah, and has to bring a korban olev yored. But in the rest of the Torah, V'lo b'chol Torah kola asu dichtib, O hoda elav, Yedi'ah me'aliyata ba'ayanan. In the rest of the Torah says, if it became known to him for sure that he was tameh, only if he knows for sure that he sinned, only if, right, O hoda elav, he became aware of his sin. He didn't know it at the beginning, and now he became aware of it. Only full awareness is called awareness. So when it comes to a korban chatat kebu'ah, if he sinned by mistake, and then he's fully aware, and only then if he sins again, then he has to bring two korban chatats. But if in the middle he had a safek yedi'ah, he would not have to bring another korban chatat kevu'ah. So Rabbi Yochanan, you see, is consistent. There's a good reason to make a distinction between the two cases. Ela l'resh Lakish adam mokim le kerebi Ishmael nokma kerebi. However, according to Resh Lakish, why does he bother in the first braita, the second case of the braita, where he went down one path and he went into the Mikdash, and he became pure in between, and then he went on the second path and went into the Mikdash again? Why did Resh Lakish say, you know why he has to bring a korban, even though the first time he had only safek yedi'ah, second time he had only safek yedi'ah? It's because the Baraita follows the opinion, the Tanakama follows the opinion of Rabbi Ishmael, who doesn't require yedi'ah at all at the beginning. And so safek yedi'ah is not yedi'ah, okay, but even if it's not yedi'ah, still, we don't need yedi'ah at all. That's why he brings korban olev yored. Why did Resh Lakish have to explain it that way? He could have simply explained it like Rabbi, because according to Resh Lakish, his interpretation of Rabbi is that Rabbi thinks that yedi'ot sefekot, that knowledge that perhaps I sinned, is called knowledge when it comes to korbanot, when it comes to even to korban chatat kebu'ah, and therefore that should be the same as in the case of korban olev yored. The fact that he knew this time maybe I'm safek, the second time maybe I'm safek, but maybe a yedi'ah of maybe I am tameh is sufficient according to Resh Lakish, and we know that from his explanation of Rabbi. So why not say that the Tanakama of the second case of the Baraita is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi? Kamash malan de Rabbi Ishmael la ba'yedi'ah b'techila. In fact, Resh Lakish could have explained the Baraita that's according to Rabbi, but he wanted to teach us something new. And the new thing is that according to Rabbi Ishmael, you don't need yedi'ah at all at the beginning. That's a great chidush. So he wanted to teach us that. Now, Peshita de la ba'emi de la mi yatere le kera'e v'ne'alam de mi chayav al ha'eleh mikdash. Wait, we don't need Resh Lakish to teach that to us. It's obvious because in our Mishnah, the Mishnah all the way at the beginning of the Perek, remember this Perek also brought all the Mishnayot at the beginning. So back there on Daf Yod Daled, Rabbi Ishmael used this word v'ne'alam to teach us something else, to teach us that one is liable for coming into the Mikdash when he knows he's Tameh, but he forgot that he's in the area of the Mikdash. That's also called unawareness of Tumat Mikdash, and he has to bring Korban Olev Yored if he once he realizes afterwards. So I might think that since he uses the word v'ne'alam to teach me something else, therefore there is no extra word v'ne'alam to teach me that, oh, he forgot. That means that he must have known to begin with. Rabbi Akiva does learn from the word v'ne'alam. Oh, you see, he forgot. That means he knew, and then he forgot, and then he knew again. That's the general law, not Rabbi Ishmael. That's how we know. You have to know at the beginning. But since Rabbi Ishmael already uses the word v'ne'alam for something else, isn't it obvious that he has nowhere to derive this law that you need yediyah at the beginning? Since he has nowhere to derive it from, surely he doesn't think you need yediyah from the beginning. So we could figure that out ourselves. We don't need a Shakish to teach us that. So why does Shakish think that he has to interpret the Baraita not according to the Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, which might be the very straightforward reading of the Baraita? It's really interesting that according to Resh Lakish would give us an explanation of a Baraita that's not the simplest explanation of the Baraita. Really, the Baraita sounds like it's a Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and Rabbi Resh Lakish would agree, yes, probably Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, but he's going to interpret the Baraita in an unusual way that it's Rabbi Ishmael. Not because that's a good explanation of the Baraita, but because he wants to teach us a different thing about Rabbi Ishmael. And we'll remember it because we'll think of this Baraita. It's very interesting, just educational model. The fact that Resh Lakish would interpret it so, and you wonder if in other cases, when an Amorah interprets a Tanaitic source in an unusual way, it's not because that's the only way to interpret it, but because they want to teach us something else. By the way, look, it can be interpreted this way, and then we will learn something else about a certain opinion. So here, why does Resh Lakish have to teach us, go out of his way to teach us the law of Rabbi Ishmael? It's obvious because Rabbi Ishmael has no derivation from the pasuk because he uses pasuk for something else. And the final answer is Mahudetema kilet le mikera'eh aval migemara itle kamashmalan. I might have thought, even though Rabbi Ishmael is true, he has no biblical derivation for the fact that you need yedi'ah betechila because he uses the word v'ne'alam for something else. I might have thought that he thinks it's a halacha, it's an oral tradition that's not connected to a pasuk, but Rabbi Ishmael also would need yedi'ah. I might have thought that, and that's why Resh Lakish comes and says, oh, you know what, the Tanakh Kamav, our Baraita, could be Rabbi Ishmael. He tells us that in order to teach us that Rabbi Ishmael has no pasuk and he has no oral tradition regarding yedi'ah betechila. So that was a very important thing to teach us. Hadran alach yedi'ot hatum'ah.